Hello, everyone, you lovely, neurodiverse, wonderful folk. Great to meet you again. We're joining together with me, Ben, Addy, and a new guest, Josie Galizia, who we're very excited to
Perfect.
have on.
Yes.
He seems like a very interesting guest. We found him in our DMs, reached out and said that we can heal ADHD through frequency. Is that what you're? Yeah, great. So we are the ADHD explorers. We love to explore everything that is in the field of
Okay.
ADHD and helping. So
Okay.
we're gonna figure out what your practice is and how you feel it can help
Okay.
our ADHD community. So how you doing, Josie? Great to have you
I'm
here.
I'm 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 blessed. Thank you for having me. That's awesome.
I watched your
Yeah,
video
so
that you
we,
sent about
yeah,
coming from Africa and being raised with a lot of intense emotional experiences, which me and Addy both really resonate with, and I think a lot of ADHDers also resonate with. And you say that you're very open to whatever really helps. You know, I know that
Mhm.
everyone has different things that work for them, and with ADHD, we see in ourselves that we have to find our own way of doing it. So we want to
Mhm.
kind of hear more about what is it that you practice and how has it
Okay.
helped you
Okay.
and how can it help
Well,
our community?
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for having me again. When we talk about ADHD, AD, or any form of learning diversity, I look at it as a contrast perspective that is unique to individuals or a collective, right? And ADHD for me is simply the ability to focus on things that may not be interesting to you, or maybe focus on things that are interesting to you, right? So that being said, coming from Africa, it was difficult to focus because my brain I had locked up certain aspect of my abilities and then unlock other instinctive abilities, right? So the brain is a multidimensional system. And I think a lot of people miss that. It's a very complex system. The depth of the brain, the true depth of understanding of the brain is probably 0.00000000001%, right? When we talk about spirituality and talk about this other aspect of knowingness, we lack the fundamental understanding of the complexity of the brain, right? So the brain is simply a processor, right? We have the mind, and we have a mind, and we have your mind. And so your mind taps into the mind, which creates the reality that you are having the experience of. And
When you
because
say that,
this
can I
brain,
just interrupt for a second? When you say your
yeah, please.
mind is part of the mind that operates
Hmm.
the reality, is that what you said?
Yes, yes.
What does that mean?
So think of the reality as the potentiality of all that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
All that is possible, right? That reality exists for everyone, right? It's a multidimensional system, right? So think of that reality as uh, a potentiality that you have to collapse or make unique to you, right? So the people, places, and things are your unique experience based on that collective reality. So what end up happening is that based on what you're resonating with, you're able to draw onto you a unique reality that is all about you. Right? And sometimes we miss that, right? Everybody is beyond understanding. We're very complex in our nature, right? Because we're a divine being with a divine purpose. And that divine purpose is to reflect back to all that is. So in the simpler way to understand this is that think of the essence that you are, the divine spark. That is what conceives all potentiality of reality, right? All that reality already exists, right? And then the mind is where all that reality potential bridge to the physical construct, which is what we experience. So the mind is where the retrieval would take place. So the mind has all of this potential reality, right? And the brain says, okay, what reality best serves you? So the brain goes within the collective mind and pulls that reality that you're resonating with. And so whatever you're resonating with and whatever you feel to be your truth is what the reality is going to be pulled for you. And the brain is just a processor. So the brain becomes the feedback mechanism that says, okay, you're resonating with this. Let me give you more of that. The brain does not differentiate between positive and negative. It only gives you more of what you're resonating with. And then the brain locks and unlocks certain component in order for you to have those unique experiences because you are unique to the infinite world. And so understanding that dynamic, I says, well, everybody's infinitely powerful, right? So what are they locking up and what are they unlocking? So I wanted to go on this mission to help individual unlock their potential, fullest potential, right? And that can be done through what you choose to experience and resonate with, right? So if you have subjective definitions of people, places, and things, that is what you're going to resonate with, right? And as you resonate, you're simply experiencing the causality of duality and a contrast of duality. For every action is an equal and opposite reaction. So whatever you are experiencing, right, whatever you perpetuate, your mind will continue to feed that in a creative way. Right? So if it's being sickly, the mind has the capacity with infinite potential to become creative and allow those reality to manifest. I know you've heard the saying, thought manifests reality. So we are manifesting our reality based on our intentions as we put forward into the thought pattern of our day-to-day lives. So that was the mission that I was on, and I needed to understand why. Why are people suffering? Why are pain? Why is this, right? Why is that? So I went on this mission while trying to understand these contrasts, right? And the deeper I went, the more I realized it wasn't the fact that people were stuck in a reality that they didn't have control over. It was the fact that they didn't understand the dynamic of the rules of the reality that we are experiencing, right? This reality is based on duality, right? And so if you wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm all loving, that's exciting, right? You get excited, I'm all loving. But guess what? Now you have to experience the contrast. So you will find unloving people. So that way you can understand the best version of yourself. You can understand, oh, so this is what it means to be all loving, because that's what it means for me to not be all loving. So that duality must exist at the same time. But what ended up happening, we put judgment on our reflection, which is to deepen our understanding of self. Does that make sense?
What do you mean by the judgment we have of our? What was that? Say that
So,
again.
okay. So when you see duality, you see opposite to you, right? So when you think of, let's say, ADHD in this context, you look at ADHD, you say, I have ADHD. Well, that person that in front of me does not have ADHD. What does that mean to you? That means that you have created a judgment of what you are versus what that person is, right? They're different than you, right? That's a judgment call, right? Because you are both ADHD and not ADHD at the same time. It's what you accept to be your truth in that moment. And once you define yourself, I'm ADHD, then you'll begin to see more contrast in perspective that is uniquely different in you, that you would define as something different in you, which is okay. But at any given moment, you can say, I am both. I both possess the skill and ability of being ADHD, which is a skill and ability. I also possess the same skill and ability as those individuals that may say or may define themselves as not
Let me
having it.
let me summarize what I feel like you're saying. Are you saying that the way you define your reality is the way you experience it? If you say I have ADHD, then you're saying, I think that sometimes we can label things as just a label, and that's almost like our mind's shorthand for what it really is. And I know that, Gabor Mate likes to say that ADHD is rather, and a lot of diagnosis is, we're still pretty early to understanding all of these things. Are you saying that Gabor Mate says that diagnoses are more like a constellation of symptoms? Everyone has their own things they associate with that label ADHD. For some, it's a burden. For some, it's something they're proud of. And I feel like you're saying that you don't have to just go along with what you've been told so far with that labeling and the connotations you already have in your own mind. You can write a new one where you can maybe focus better.
One second, please. I'm sorry. In the background, I have some noise coming through. One second.
No worries. So you're saying everyone has different realities.
Eighth
And we
grade,
can.
go ahead and start walking the students down. Make sure they take everything with them. And once we're done with eighth grade lunch.
Yeah, I also reflecting on what you've said, and I think that there's something to that concept of, perceiving your reality in a different way. And like you said, I think the brain does kind of try and reinforce certain modes of thinking that we might have.
Okay.
Um, I'd be interested to know also your opinions on. I find that a lot of people with ADHD, when they get that label and when they get that
Hmm.
identifier, they then find a sense of community in it, and they
Hmm.
start to see others who are like them, and that they're
Okay.
not alone. Whereas I guess what you were saying is that when you put that label on yourself, you tend to create a form of judgment and see difference in others. Whereas my experience has been quite different in that I find that it's to be a connector of people to have that labeling. So what's your thoughts on that?
So when we look at definitions, definitions are typically subjective, right? So I want you to think of yourself as an expression of all that is and all that is not, right? Let's make it
What does
simple,
that
right?
what does that mean? All
We
that
have a lot.
is and all that is
Okay.
not.
The law of creation. Let's look at the law of creation. Says matter. Matter cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. Would you agree with that concept or the idea? Okay. Well, you are an expression of matter. You're expressions of energy source, right? So that means you cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. Based on your intentions, you can transform into a subjective aspect of the all that is, right? And so if when you say I am, like you mentioned, Addie, you says I am this, right? But because your nature is one of loving and collective, you will pull that to you because that's part of your nature, right? That nature is that I love to be around families and friends and others, and I love community, and so you will pull that as aspect of your definition, right? Where somebody else might say, I have ADHD, there's something wrong with me, and no one likes me, and then they'll have a reality where they'll have that experience because both are subjective, right? You can have both based on your intention. So ADHD is not to be captured into a box, right? Because there's so much we can learn from the idea of what happens with the brain when you have neurodiversity happening in your brain, right? So I'll give you guys my experience, how I went through that journey. So having ADHD and having a lack of ability to focus, I simply went back and said, okay, why am I having this lack of ability to focus? Is there something wrong with me? And the more I went into that depth of there's something wrong with me, the more I began to experience this reality of other people projecting something wrong with me, right? And then I had to awaken. There was nothing wrong with me. Is that I had chosen to have a different perspective of reality, right? And when I made that choice, certain things interest me, certain things are not interesting to me. And so therefore, those things are not interesting to me. My patience and my focus are not there. And then I realized, oh, I'm just redirecting my focus in those things that gives me joy and pleasure. The problem with our reality is that we're in a construct where you don't have the free will to do what you want to do when you want to do it. You're forced into construct of situation like a job that requires you to sit there and do something in front of a computer and do other things that it's not in alignment with your nature of definition of oneself, right? So you're like, I want my time. I want the freedom of my time. And then somebody said, no, you have to sit there from 9 to 12, 9 to 5 and do this.
Mm.
Of course, there's going to be a resistance to it, right? And those resistance sometimes what we put in a box and we create labels for. I have resistance because it doesn't align with me. And that resistance is what I need to overcome. And so what I looked at is, well, what do we need to do to address that? We need to create capacity, right? We have to expand capacity because if you have a capacity to want to be free, right? Free of the bondage of being under somebody else's schedule, free from the bondage of somebody's distortions, then you have to say, okay, what capacity do I have when I am in that situation to be able to subjectively look at it, but also be able to elevate from it and know that I'm more than this. I'm just having this unique experience. And then I think once you begin to resonate with the idea that that situation doesn't define you, you begin to expand beyond it, right? And then you begin to resonate more. And then guess what? You begin to find your time belongs to you, right? Because now you begin to have that reality. But you might have somebody else with ADHD and says, my time does not belong to me. It belongs to 9 to 5 at the job that I'm working at, right? And so the coping mechanism is not there. So the goal is to expand capacity where to begin to understand that you're more than the situation. The situation does not define you. The situation is just a subjective version of yourself that may not give you the joy and the happiness and the pleasure. And so what you want to do is find the spark, find the beacon of light within that situation that you can start holding on to and be excited about and love being there. It might be just one or two people that you like working with, right? And then you begin to find that because you want to build that resonance. You want to build that positivity that, no matter where I am, I can focus my attention on those things or those people who brings me joy and brings me happiness. And that was one way I looked at the expanding capacity. And then what I also looked at is the brain. The brain was locking up certain abilities when it comes to ADHD. So when I looked at students, because I worked in the school, I looked at students when we first started educating students, we fragmented thinking, right? We fragmented thinking because we want to put them in a one-dimensional system. These kids are multidimensional system. In fact, most of the human beings that are being birthed right now are not in the same alignment as most of the people who write curriculums. The elders and all these older people, they're not in the same alignment as these new human beings. And we are moving to that place where it's going to be recognized that we have new human beings on this planet that does not align. And the reason we have that is because we're in an information age. And the information age has to be approached differently. We're not here to gather and regurgitate information anymore. We're here to experience the information that best serves us on demand when it's time, right? We're not here to say, let's collect a bunch of books and read those books. Well, if I need something and I want to understand something, we're right now existing within an on-demand society where I can go grab that information and have that experience in real time. Right? And that is where the conflict exists, because they're restricting that ability for you to be on demand and to do what you want to do, what is necessary now, because they want to put you in a box and say, oh, no, you have to go read all these books. You have to go read all of this, and then you have to regurgitate it on a test or regurgitate it in the classroom. And so I noticed it was fragmenting the kids' thinking. And then on top of that, the way that we're teaching it. So in the United States, we read from left to right, and we write from left to right. Right? And then we'll begin to teach them how to process, because the goal is within an information age is to quickly process information, comprehend, process, and reflect, right? And so you want to quickly comprehend the information. It's what information is necessary for you. Then you want to process it, and then you want to reflect. You want to spend most of your time reflecting, right? So I usually say 40% comprehending, 20% processing, and 40% reflecting. That reflected part is where you really begin to expand oneself. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And that is what gets fragmented, because we have a society that puts so much information that you become reactive to the information. And that was intentional, right? They want the collective reacting, right? And so when you become one who react, then they start to put you in a box. Or you're reactive, or you're not focused, so therefore you're ADHD. Well, no, you're not. You're co-creating based on the collective experience, right? You're not ADHD. You're simply reacting and responding to the situation, so that way you best can be able to have the maximum capacity to have the best experience for you.
So let me just
when I looked at
interrupt
it,
you
go
for
ahead.
a second. Just so
Sure.
like we're on the same line here.
Yeah.
And to make it a bit more like, because there's some things I want to ask you about, and you're very eager to share.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I want to concentrate what you said down to some principles. I feel like you're saying that everyone is a lot more complex that the traditional education system goes along with, and therefore you should follow what resonates with you rather than a traditionalistic approach. The time spent reflecting is where you build your capacity to handle intense emotions and intense experiences. You're saying look for the good in every experience you go into, right? And that helps you deal with those intense experiences and grow your capacity to feel those intense things. And you say don't be emotionally reactive. So you're saying that every time you're in a situation where there's intense emotion, you can choose to have maybe a more calmed response, and you'll grow that skill over time. Are those the kind of things you're saying?
Yes, yeah, and I think I can expand a little bit more on that. So when we talk about emotions, right? Emotion is a tool, just like the ego. It's a tool that we can leverage to maximize intensity within the experience. Right? We want to go to the depth of the experience, we tap into emotions, right? We want to go to the depth of a unique experience, we might tap into the ego. The ego becomes the fuel, the emotions becomes the fuel. Now you have to ask yourself, if I tap into this emotion, is it going to serve me? Right? Because tapping into this emotion is going to feed more of what I'm experiencing. So if the emotion is sadness and you attach to it, you begin to resonate with it. And that means you're going to pull more of that reality in a creative way to you. So the goal is to understand the emotion, but the only reality that exists is the reality of now, right? So I usually tell people when I train them, I tell them, I say, here are some facts, okay? Because I can't do nothing about your past experiences, and because you cannot really do anything about what has happened to you, we really shouldn't care about it. We should care about your next step, because your next step is what leads you to your next level of success, right? Your next step is what is most important. That is not what we focus on in this country. So let me give you an example. Let's say a young man goes through a toxic environment where he's abused physically. He goes through all these different distortions that happens in his life. And he has this social, emotional, and all these distortions happening as he relates to reality, right? Let's say based on those actions, he reacts and commits a crime. Right? What do we want to do? We want to punish him for what he did, but no one wants to look at the story behind the story, right? Those stories created causality. So if we become a society that focuses on the next step, then we begin to really heal, because that next step is what leads that person. But if we're talking about the past, then we can say, oh, you're a criminal based on your past, or you were this based on your past. But your past doesn't really define you unless you choose to accept it. And that choice must be at some level unconditional.
I think there's a big like difference in looking at the world as if you're living from just your past or living fresh with a fresh piece of paper. I think that we do have a funny thing about traditional views in our society, that we think, an identity seems so solid. We say, I am Ben, I am Jossie, I am Adamina, and that thing seems so solid, but it's ever changing, and we're totally made of different particles within I think 14 years, at least the bones are in 7 years or something, but we're completely different things. Everything is ever changing. I believe everything is a part of one big system, and we label it as smaller things, but it's a part of one big system. I agree with we can change, and the brain is so much more neuroplastic than we ever thought, and I agree with the prison system. In Norway, it's a different outlook on things. They see it as rehabilitation rather than punishment, and I think that has shown less crime rates in the future. So that's really cool. You have a very
To
interesting way
interject,
with words.
let's talk about rehabilitation. You see, we can redefine things, but I call it actionable wisdom behind the words, right? I don't care about words. I don't really focus on words, because words are always constantly changing, right? For example, you come into one country, you might say, good morning, right? But the contextual nature of those words is confusing to some. Is there a good morning? Is the morning good? What are you saying when you say good morning? Well, I'm implying hello, right? So there's a lot of, we have to imply contextual and subjective perspective in that. So when we look at words can actually fragment our thinking conceptually on how we understand things. Well, we can use good morning, and someone can just say, what's up? Or someone can just say, yo, right? And all implies the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And
We're all
so,
pointing at the same thing, I feel, at the end of the day.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what we want to be careful of are the words. We want to say, okay, at the end of the day, what is the meaning behind those definitions and those words, right? What are the actionable wisdom behind it? And that's what I look for. So let me backtrack what I decided to do about the situation, because I have intense learning disability. I was labeled once upon a time as having intellectual learning disability. I was called retarded and different things like that. And what people fail to realize, because I was in Africa, I had moved into an instinctive mindset where I was reactive. My survival instinct had taken over most of my experiences at that time, so my brain had aligned with it. Well, rather than getting clarity of that, and maybe because I couldn't express it, I was about 12 years of age at that time, and maybe the language barrier, caused deficiency in the communication. They just labeled me as something that was wrong with me, right? Not that I had a unique ability to adapt, which is what I had. I had a unique ability to react to a situation quickly and adapt to it. Yeah. And so, which is what ADHD simply is, our ability to quickly react and adapt. And so, what are we reacting and adapting? Well, we have an infinite of experiences happening around us, right? And so, whether somebody walks into the room and all of a sudden you react and respond to that person because that person has some level of connection that in your mind makes a connection to you. So we're constantly reacting and responding to those stimuli that's happening because our mind has transformed into that. Well, instead of labeling the person, it says, okay, well, do we have the ability to slow it down? Can we slow them down a little bit so they can see contrast? So I looked at autism. Autism was a powerful gift, right? Autism is the ability to slow down and see all of the pattern or most of the pattern to the best of your ability, right? So most
That's how
kids
you
that are autistic,
define it.
they-
Okay.
yes, I define it in a way where they have, so it means simplify it, right? Think of a book. Have you ever seen those flip books that animate? When you flip in the pages, it looks like the character is moving in the book.
Yeah.
Okay, so think of that. We see the animation moving, right? Kids that are autistic sees the individual pages. So
Well,
they see
isn't
one
that
page
a
and
large
flip to the next page.
oversimplification? Because I'm autistic
I know.
too, and like
Yeah. And
I don't
so,
think that's the case for everyone. But why do you say
well, let's
that?
see that. You see more detail because you'll see more details in people,
Okay,
places, and things
I
than
see what you're
most. Yeah.
saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think
So,
that there's a lesser of an ability to filter all the information coming in with
yeah.
autism.
So when we are flipping, we're barely seeing all the details, right? So that is the norm. Everybody just wants to flip the book and be
Mm.
entertained by the book. Whereas you're looking at each page and looking at the details, and you can regurgitate those details, and you can see explicitly some of those details. So that's a slow down process. So I looked at that process because I myself is autistic, right? And I've been, labeled as autistic and have been autism. I'm probably on every spectrum. So I looked at that slow aspect of me, and I also looked at the ADHD aspect, which I'm quickly reactive, right? So I looked at both and said, well, how do I balance both of it? Because ultimately my goal is to have balance. And I think that is the ultimate goal. I think of it like the number line. For every positive number, there's a negative number, right? Neutrality is where there is no replicate. It's just zero. So when I look at that, I need to come to that place of zero so I can be in control of my creation,
So
not
how do you
reacting to
do
my
that?
creation.
That
So
sounds
what I
great.
did, yeah. So I designed an algorithm to do it, right? I
An
designed an
algorithm.
algorithm that allows you to concentrate, right, and slow you down, but also allows you to see depth of understanding as well. So it can concentrate, but then also allows you to accelerate. So when I was training these students, I had a lot of students that were low performing, slow performing, and when I unlocked those capacity based on those algorithms, not only did they have capacity, they were doing things that everybody said should have been impossible. They were also responding because a lot of kids, when you label them within the education system, they get stuck in that box. Again, we talked about that box at the beginning. We have to understand that we're more than those boxes that we label these kids within, and that these kids can expand beyond those boxes if we just look
So,
and we look at the contrasting aspect of them.
yeah, by an algorithm, you mean like a mode of viewing things, like a different, and this
Like a
was
flow
a
chart
way
of
of teaching,
thinking.
or an algorithm that you applied to your uh own self.
Okay,
A
so
process.
I looked at, yes, there are different contextual algorithms, but I looked at an absolute algorithm because remember what the thing is we talked about. I think you mentioned at the beginning. How do you find the common denominator? So let's say Addie represented one half, right? Ben, you represented one third. Well, you have to find a common denominator before you guys can really come together, right? So when I was looking at the algorithm that actually defined reality, it was arithmetic. Okay, it was the actual algorithm under everything. People, places, and things had to follow the law of arithmetic. Right? It wasn't reading, it wasn't the books, it wasn't all the words. It was arithmetic. When you learn to add, you learn how to bridge connections. You learn how to make connections, right? And so you understand how do I bring these things together. That's a skill, right? When you learn to subtract, you learn based on my algorithm, you learn how to see differences in things and understand and appreciate those differences, right? Not the positive nor negative, just see the differences. Because with the numbers, there's no judgment in the numbers. You see that? When I'm adding something together, there's no judgment. Oh, should I add this number to that number? The conceptual idea is just bridge it together and find similarity and unity within those numbers, right? Or those constructs. And then when you multiply, it's expansive. How do I see the patterns perpetuating to infinite? That's going beyond yourself to the higher self or to other aspects of people. And then division is simply, for me, is the ability to compartmentalize and be able to organize that best serves you. So I know I can put this category, and that category. So those four algorithms is what I focus my attention on because that was a universal language within all of us. And then I built an algorithm that allows students to expand capacity. And once I did that, they begin to become successful, right? So the
So
ADHD, they still had it. Go ahead.
Can I just ask, what is the core of your practice that helps expand these students' capacity?
I'm at that place where I'm tired of the subjective definition that limits these kids' ability to be more than themselves. Okay. And
Okay,
so
so
that
what
was
do
my
you do
push.
with them?
So,
Can you do a little bit with us?
yeah. So, what I do is, I would take, let's start with the arithmetic, right? And I have some videos I will send you guys so you can see what that looks like in action, right? So, I take a kindergarten student that lack focus, right? So, one of the first things we do is I do tapping. I call it tapping towards greatness, right? Because I want self-reflectiveness. So what I do, I have them sit down. So let me give you an example. In the midst of COVID, I took some second graders. These kids were all over the place. When I said they couldn't sit for 5 seconds, could not sit for 5 seconds, screaming, running. So when I walked in, I said, let's do a quick experiment. I want everybody to sit down and close their eyes, right? And I'm simply going to clap. And when I clap, when I stop, you simply have to tell me how many claps there were. Make it simple. So you close your eyes, I clap, clap, clap. Sometimes I might clap faster. And then when I stop, I said, tell me the number of claps.
10.
I noticed 10, okay? I noticed after 15 claps, I was losing a lot of them, right? And then I even tested it with 8th graders. When I got to 45 claps, I lost most of them. So that means that is their focus level, right? Then I set up a system. I said, okay, I need to keep my students safe, right? What is safe? It's an acronym I use. I need to structure them. I need to create structure because that structure will guide them. And then I need them to become aware of self and others, right? So I call it SAF. And then the next one is F. Focus. I need them to focus, and then I need them to be able to engage. All right. So those 4 acronyms, those 4 letters, SAFE, is what I focus all of my training on. So then, what I would do with the
Structure,
students after
awareness, focus, engage.
engage. Right? So I designed that so that way when students walk in, I say the first thing I got to get them safe. So we create structure. So what we do, we create structure by having them lead and self-direct, right? I want them to empower that ability to manage themselves. So we start with affirmation. I do tapping towards greatness. So it's like EFT. We tap on top of the head gently, like this, and we say, and I say to them, I love myself because I was made perfect. And then they repeat after me. They will say, I love myself because I was made perfect. And then I would say it again, I love myself because I was made perfect. And we go through that process. Then we go to the third eye. We say, you are greatness destined for great things. So I begin to affirm those aspects of them that they have not heard before. Okay, I am gifted, and we go to next to the eyes. And what I'm sharing with them, when you tap on top of your head, you're tapping to your higher version of self. You're opening up your crown chakra in order to allow things to flow. Right? When we go to your third eye, we're trying to open up your inner self. We're trying to expand. So we're gently just affirming to the brain that I need you to expand this capacity or unlock this capacity for me. And then when we go around the eyes, I want you to be able to see. So we tap around the eyes, and then we tap around the mouth so that way you can speak intelligently, right? And then, of course, we tap around the heart. So that because the heart is the most intelligent organ. So we go through this tapping process and I have them leading. So we develop that capacity to self-reflect and also understand, that's the awareness of themselves, that you are beyond understanding. You are powerful, you are amazing, you are brilliant, you are gifted. It does not matter where your background may comes from or who your parents are. You are perfect just the way you are. And that's why we repeat, I love myself because I was made perfect. Now, once we've done that, then I expose them to the algorithm. We start with adding. Okay? Rather than adding from right to left, we add from left to right because I need them to be able to concentrate and focus. So what I did, I organized the adding system where it's intuitive. I designed it to become intuitive. It can be scaffold down, it can be scaffold up. So for scholars that have ADHD, at let's say first or second grade, I will put maybe 20 numbers in front of them. Right? And I made the scale so easy that counting is the hardest skill in math. If I can get you to count to 50, you can do anything. So for most young scholars, they can count to 20. So I made that the hardest skill. Even though it's 15 digit and 20 digit, it's still counting up to 20. And I will send you guys a copy of what that looks like. And so they go through that process and they love it. Because the brain begins to unlock certain ability to concentrate a little bit more, and then they concentrate. And what was interesting, once they were fully unlocked, they were adding those 17 digits in their head. faster than me, and I created the system, right? Because, like you said, the neuroplasticity exists within these kids is wide open at the beginning, and so we want to make sure those definitions are there and not locked back up. So we do that, and we do it with all the arithmetic. Once we have done that, then I give them a complex algorithm that allows them to expand the depth of thought. And once I've done, I step back and I say, I no longer care what you learn. Go out and they can learn anything that's in front of them, because we're organizing their thinking, right? With ADHD, when you bring words and you bring everything, it fragments the thinking and it agitates people and it gets them uncomfortable because it doesn't align with them naturally. People who are ADHD want you to get straight to the point. Get to the point. Let's talk about it. Make it easy for me to understand, so that way I can continue to have that conversation with you. If you're making it complex, I'm gonna shut you down, right? And we don't want that.
All right, Teal Highlanders.
Let me
how's it
pause
making
one
for a
second.
great day?
So I think what I'm getting from a lot of what you're saying is that you're essentially created like a child-led form of education, which I think nowadays has been proven to be a really effective form of education for neurodivergent people and just like children in general. You're allowing them to guide what they're learning about and providing them space and giving them good affirmations. So that sounds great. It sounds like it's a great thing that you are implementing in your education. I'm curious as to how that has connected you to, because we initially got reached out by David Wong, the
Mhm.
frequency expert, right?
Yes.
And so how has that connected you to David and
Okay.
the whole frequency
Perfect.
healing
Perfect.
thing?
And that's the exciting part. So I was on this exploratory mission, right? And I wanted to understand this idea of resonance, right? Because I received what I call downloads. I don't know if you're familiar with that on a spiritual level. Sometimes when you make the right connections, you expand yourself. So I
Yeah, I
received these
think
downloads, and
yeah.
these downloads are absolute. Are you familiar with downloads?
I think a lot of people in the ADHD
Some.
community are. I think we're all bombarded with these like nuggets in our brain, and they don't turn off, right? So we are very
Yeah.
familiar, I'd say.
So, so I get these downloads, and I evaluate these downloads, and I look for absoluteness, right? And so
What's
one of the questions I
absoluteness?
was asking, that means I need to see, it's like numbers. Numbers have this sense of absoluteness, right? If you follow the pattern, it goes forever. You have this idea of what forever looks like in numbers. So if I say count, you can count, and then you keep going, you keep counting. You can say there's something called infinite. But you know you can get there, but you can't really get there. Does that make sense? Only in the mind you can perceive this potential of that distance. Nowhere else can you perceive that. So if I say count by
So
two and go forever, you can say, yeah,
you're saying that absoluteness to you is that it has a humongous, endless possibility in it, and that gives
that's
you
exactly,
an
exactly.
emotion you can feel, and that's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yes. So when a
Okay.
download comes, I need to make sure it's more expansive than subjective, because I don't want it to be about me. I need to be about the collective. And so that means if I'm one with you and I'm one with Addie, that means I have to have expanded myself beyond myself. Most of us are contracted to just ourselves. So think of it in a way. I'll give you this simple analogy. Imagine taking your laptop and sitting outside with your laptop. Okay? You take your laptop and you go into Google, let's say Google Map, and you find exactly where you are, right? And you zoom on top of you. Well, that is your reality, and that's where most people's reality stays, right? So remember, you're sitting outside, and if somebody came and asked you, what is happening down the street, or what are you going to say? I don't know, right? Because you haven't expanded your capacity. You don't know
I
what's
think,
happening down
can
the
I just
street.
interrupt here? I think
Yeah.
I'm familiar with this concept of interconnectedness. I call it the everything.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Watts called it the everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like when people are doing things like healing from trauma or trying to learn to focus, I think that taking the emphasis off our own identity is a way to,
Mm-hmm.
see ourselves anew, because we are always new people every day, and billions of new neural connections are made every millisecond. It's a helpful
Absolutely.
concept that once we accept that we are an ever-changing being, we allow ourselves to change. When we say that I am this and I am
Absolutely.
this forever, we don't really seem to change. So I was wondering if you're familiar with a book called Intraconnected. It's a book where
I'm
it talks
not.
about this concept as a kind of solution to you know, these thought loops that we get stuck in, like I am not good enough, you know,
Mm-hmm.
these negative, you were talking about, you're countering negative beliefs in your work with children, you know, you're showing them the opposite, you know, you're giving them new things they can draw from. I am powerful, I am loved. And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just, I wanted to just see if I'm on the same level as you here with this understanding
Yes,
of the
absolutely.
everything.
And so with the absoluteness, even that analogy as I was mentioning, is that when you stop looking at yourself, as well, sometimes people define as going within your higher self, right? So it's like taking the Google map and zooming out. Guess what? Now you can see your entire neighborhood. So now you can see perspective. You can also take that Google map and zoom on top of another person. That's the idea of empathy, right? Now you begin to see perspective. You get to follow that person. So when you begin to expand beyond yourself, you begin to see that, oh, that person is reflecting another aspect of myself, which is great. So I was looking for a higher definition that binds us together rather than looking for definition that separates us, right? And so that has been my mission. So one of the challenge for me was, if I am resonating with sickly, right, or negativity, how can I resonate with positivity if that's what is what I need in order to transform, right? If I want to transform my reality from being sickly to being healthy, I have to first resonate with it. It's not what I'm thinking, it's what my cells are resonating with. You talk about those cells are intelligent cells. All of them are infinite intelligent, right? So you have to create a definition that all of them synchronize with, right? That best serves you in that moment. So when I was looking for that, I was like, in the physical construct, we have a lot of conversations, we have a lot of books, but it's all subjective. How do I change my residence now? If I'm sick, how can I feel healthy in order to become healthy? It was a challenge, right? It's just like someone who said, I have ADHD now, I want to get rid of it. Now, it's not a disease, but in their mind and in their belief system, it's a bad thing they need to get rid of. And I'm saying, don't get rid of it, expand beyond it, right? And so what I wanted to do, I wanted to understand the law of creation has certain construct that we must follow. And the law of creation says, what you resonate, the universe or your reality will conspire and come to you. That is a law, right? Because like attract like. So I'm like, okay, beautiful. And I received the download. But the actionable wisdom behind it was the challenge. How do you resonate? And that's a question I always propose before I met David. How do you resonate with something that you're not? It's a challenge, right? You can talk about it. It feels good when you talk about it, but you're not really feeling it. And that was what a lot of people was experiencing. They were going to, let's say, these motivational speaks. They were going to these events, and then they were going back home and falling back into the same trap. Why? Because they weren't resonating with it. So I started looking at energy technology. I looked at the life vessel. I looked at so many other technology. Life vessel was resetting the autonomic nervous system. I looked at some other technology. And I needed something that was the path of least resistance. I want something that because we're in a reality where we want our freedom to be able to experience the environment without a restriction, because that restriction binds us back to the construct of what we're trying to expand beyond. So I came across David Technology, so I wanted to put it to the test. And this is fascinating how this manifested. So I say, if David Technology really worked, I'm going to purchase his technology and I'm going to test it. So I purchased David Technology, and David had these frequency technology and so forth. And I said, okay, I'm going to start running specific frequency. The first one I started running was luck. Right? Luck is this idea that for me was opposite of what I was experiencing. Right? I needed more luck. I needed to remove negativity because that was my mindset. But what it was doing was just shifting me. So I began to run the frequency, and all of a sudden synchronicity began to happen. Interesting things begin to happen. I got excited. I was like, I was meeting people in places and things. I'll give you an example. I was trying to meet someone for 2 years. Her name is Erica Badu. She's a singer. I was like, I want to meet Erica because she has a nonprofit. I was interested in partnering with her. So I'm there, and I tried multiple different avenues. I reached out to people who knew her. She was always busy. So I went to David's frequency technology. I said, if I change my residence and change my intention, then the universe says it should draw onto me, correct? So that's what I did. I ran the frequency technology with that intention for 2 weeks. I'm in the middle of class. And guess who walks through my door in the middle of my classroom? Erica. It freaked me out. It freaked me out at first. And I was like, it was a whole entourage of people, and she walked through the entourage and walked into my classroom. So I was like, okay, there's something to this idea. If I resonate, it would draw. So I wanted more. So I said, I want to meet David. I want to speak to David. I want to look him in the eyes and say, do you know what you have? And so I called. I called several different people. David was always busy. So I said, rather than going trying to find David in the physical construct, let me change my resonance. So I began to run the frequency again. I began to run the frequency with the intention to meet David. So I'm driving, and all of a sudden I get this random call from a random number. It is David. And David says, Mr. Mr. Galicia, we're having an event in Dallas. Would you like to work the event with me? I said, David who? Because I didn't know this person. He said, this is David Wan. And I was like, wow, okay. So we go to the event, and I meet David. We have the eye-to-eye conversation. And while I was there was a neuro specialist, a neuroscientist there, and I wanted to meet him as well. Okay? And his name was Dr. Porter. I said, I got to meet Dr. Porter because everybody said he's the person to understand, neuroscience and different things. I remember when I walked up to Dr. Porter, he was dismissive. It wasn't intentional. He wasn't resonating with me, right? And no matter what I was saying, it wasn't connecting. So I went back to the technology. David had brought his set of technology, and I ran certain frequency, abundance, and expansiveness, and so forth. And something interesting happened. I'm on my way home. Someone stops me and says, hey, man, I really enjoy what you're doing for the kids. It's amazing. I want to be part of it. So here's my number. So he gives me his number. I get home. About 2 hours later, I get a text from him. He says, listen, I'm meeting with some people in my suite. I would like you to come and join. We're going to have world-class conversations. World-class conversations? Okay. So I go there. And as I was walking in, someone was walking out. And they said, oh, you can have a seat right there. Guess what? When I sat down, guess who was to my right? Mr. Porter. So I began to see, okay, there's something about first resonating in order to transform the reality. And that's what we wanted to do. And so I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's okay.
I think it's a very useful belief to
interesting.
have. I think that we all have experiences that have been meaningful to us. I'm glad you found something that works for you. I think that when someone says you can heal by frequency technology, I think that can raise some red flags for people. So how would you explain it in a way
I did
that
not say
wouldn't set
heal.
off
We did not.
those red flags?
Okay. Remember, for every action is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
Our job is to change what you're resonating with that doesn't define you.
But
And then
what are you
get to
saying?
have the experience that you desire.
Yeah, I
Repeat that.
understand that you can frame your reality. Don't worry, I know, okay? But I just really want to know,
Okay.
what is this thing and what does it do? Just talk to me like I'm your friend or something.
So,
Yeah, because specifically,
okay.
when we got the message
Okay.
from David in our DMs, his
Yeah.
message was, I love the topics on your podcast about ADHD. How can we schedule a time to discuss the power of healing through frequencies?
Yeah, we want to
Absolutely.
heal through
So
frequency,
what
That's
okay?
phrasing, right?
Right now.
So the idea of healing through. So let's look at the construct of healing, right? Remember, everything happens in duality, right? So whatever your definitions are, that I want to stop doing this, right? We're simply going to shift, right? It's not healing; it's shifting, right? And we shift based on the frequency and the resonance that is existing in you, right? You are a collective of resonance happening right now, right? If you want to shift to another channel, then this technology is for you. That's simply what we're trying to say. The technology helps you shift to another
it's like
reality or to another aspect of your. And that's what the frequency technology does. The frequency, because energy cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed. It transforms, right? And so it's like watching a movie, right? And you don't have access to the remote, you're stuck in that movie. With the energy technology, we're giving you the remote. And we now
Okay.
say shift.
I think that you had
Shift the
some
channel
really good
that
things
you
with what you were talking about when you were talking about having the children and you're in the classroom and you get them to close their eyes and they do those claps. I see how that can work because you are connecting their attention to a sense get a window.
Mhm.
They could
Mhm.
at one sense window at a
Mhm.
time. They're completely focused on listening, and that builds the capacity to concentrate. Like, I get that. Okay, so like you have to join me where I'm at in my understanding, and I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
And then you said,
Okay.
you're doing the tapping while saying the with the phrases. And I think that can also be
Affirmations.
good.
Yeah.
You're making new neural network.
EFT.
You are starting to believe in yourself. EFT is a valid technique, and you're connecting to
Mhm.
the sensations in the current moment, which is basically the foundations of meditation, which I'm very familiar with. So maybe you could explain
Mhm.
how this works for you, like in your day-to-day life. When is your
Okay.
practice maybe, and how long do you do it for, and where are you placing your attention during that practice?
So I use the frequent technology more now than I did with mindful activity, right? Because I wanted to heal, I wanted to transform from within, right? I needed to communicate to the cells faster. So when I do meditation, I might have to sit for 45 minutes. As long as I've sat, is 3 hours, right, without moving. I've been places through meditation. I've been
Yeah,
beyond time and space. Okay, so
yeah,
you
it's good.
understand the depth of meditation. So I've been there, and when I went there, it was a lot of energy on the physical level because
Hmm.
meditation, when you meditate, is simply slowing down the body, so that way you become less aware of the physical, so that way you can go to the depth of who you are, right? You can expand beyond yourself. So you go from the physical, you close out the physical, you close the door to the physical, and then you start to go within, right? That's where all knowledge exists. Well, how do you go within? When you are meditating, you are aligning all of your cells. But what if you can achieve that quickly? What if you could run the frequency that speaks to the cells quickly and more effectively and more efficiently? And so pulse electromagnetic frequency does that. It sends the signal directly to the cell that aligns with that meditative state. So you get there faster. Remember, we're in an
What was
information
that?
age.
Pulse
Everything is reactive.
magnetic. What was that? Pulse magnetic.
Pulse electromagnetic frequency.
Pulse
Pulse
electromagnetic,
electromagnetic frequency.
as in like
Frequency.
alternating current.
PMF. Yes. So what David and what I would love for David to come on the show and expand upon the depth of the technology itself. My simple. Remember, I try to keep things simple. I call it simplicity. I need things simple, right? Life is not meant to be complex. Life is meant to be simple. I say keep things simple for me, right? And through simplicity, I'm able to understand complexity because the foundation of complexity is the simple aspect of it. So that
So
being said, when it
let me
comes to
just
this,
define, like I just Googled pulse magnetic frequency, and just to define it simply for our listeners, it
electromagnetic.
says,
Okay.
okay, electromagnetic. Yeah. So it says pulsed PEMF, right? Therapy
Correct.
sends
Correct.
magnetic,
Uh-huh.
this is what it says on Google, sends magnetic energy into the body. And it says these energy waves work with your body's natural magnetic field to improve healing. So, like, what's the deal with this then?
Improve
PEMF.
transformation. We can't say transformation because most people are not aware of it, but it shifts. It improves the shift of the body.
So it's affecting the cells or something? With
Yes.
like there's enough iron in the cells or something to resonate with magnetic frequencies? Or are you saying that it happens on a kind of small electron based frequency thing?
In a simple way, again, bringing simplicity in, the technology communicates to the cells in a natural way. Right.
But like
So
what
because
do you mean?
everybody, because each time you resonate, you have a definition, you have like a blueprint, an identity of that resonance, right? It's a frequency, right? So let's say the Earth magnetic frequency is 7 point something, right? That is a unique frequency to the Earth, right? If you align with that frequency uniquely, you should be in alignment with the Earth because you and the Earth are now one in that alignment. So we're trying to attain that through conscious awareness, but that has to happen on an unconscious level, because you could not really fully understand that. So this technology allows you to go deeper within yourself and communicate directly to the cells and says, okay, the cells receives information. So think of everything as information. Maybe that will make it simple. Everything that happens is information. Information cannot be created. It cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed based on the intention, right? And so we are able to send information directly to the cell and to the body holistically. And that's that. And once we send that information, we educate the body in a different concept, with a different concept, with a different idea, and then the body begins to align with that new
Okay,
definition.
so you're sending
That's
this
simple.
magnetic
Go ahead.
pulses to the cells of the body, right? Is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're saying. And
Yeah.
then what do you do
Yes.
during that? So you activate this
So those
device, it
pulse,
pulses the magnetic waves, and then what do you do?
you do nothing. You just
You do
move on with
nothing.
your life. You just
So
live
you
your
just
life. You
is it a
just.
little device? It has an on button? Is it USB-C chargeable? Like what is it? How does it work? What is it? What's it made of?
So Google. I don't know if you can see David's technology, the Aura coil. Maybe
The
if you Google it,
Aura
you'll be able
coil?
to see it.
AURA?
Yeah. Yes, Aura
Okay,
coil,
I'm Googling.
and you'll begin to see what the technology look like.
Okay, so it looks like to the viewers, I'm looking at it, and it looks like a bunch
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
copper coils, which are wound kind of similarly
Yes.
to a motor, an electric motor, which is powered by alternating current.
Yeah.
So that makes pulsed electromagnetic field therapy makes sense.
Correct. And then also, if you look up the handheld version, which is called the Qi coil, QICOIL, you'll see it's a different design.
So it's like similar to a motor in that it pulses alternating magnetic currents.
So it takes sound and it converts the sound into wave, and you get to experience the sound. The
Okay, so it
sound
makes
is
up its
generated.
own. Oh, it's a sound.
Yeah. So it takes sound and then converts the sound into wave, and you get to experience the wave. So let's make it simple again. I don't want to get technical. Okay. Remember, as ADHD folks, we don't like complexity. It fragments
Well,
our
I
thinking
do.
more. So keep it simple. Right?
I like to
You
understand
like
it
complexity.
fully. Like my autistic
Okay.
side is rearing up and being like, I'm going to know.
Okay.
On Wikipedia,
Okay.
just to provide another view for our listeners, it says
Okay.
PEMF therapy is claimed to offer some benefits in the treatment of fractures. The evidence is inconclusive and insufficient to inform current clinical practice. So what do you have something to say about that? Has it been
So
useful to
let's
you?
bring it back again. Yeah, so let's bring it back subjectively. Okay, have you ever listened to a music that you love and how the music transformed you in that moment?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard a song that came on and then you were feeling one kind of way, and all of a sudden the song allows you to feel another kind of way? Have you ever
Yeah,
had that
so
experience?
yes, you're saying it's like been to you. It's
Okay,
been really
so let's
good.
keep it simple. Okay?
I just want to
So
know what
just
you
everybody, I
do.
want to keep
Like,
it simple.
what do you do on
I
the
know, I know,
daily?
I
You
know,
turn
I
it on
know,
and do nothing?
I
Like,
know, I know where you're going.
come on, give me
Because
something.
one of the things I try to be, okay, I want to be careful, because when you start talking about technical, right, and you're not making it real to the person, then you have other people that want to challenge the technical aspect, right?
I'm just on
Because
behalf of the
mainstream
viewers.
society,
I'm being
okay,
curious. You know, I'm asking the questions
I
they
know,
would ask. So you got to answer them.
perfect. Okay, I'm
You know,
going to
you're
answer
the
your question.
guy. You're the
So
guy
let me
we're
answer it.
interviewing. You got to know this
I
stuff,
know.
man.
So let me answer your question in a way that makes it simple, right? So let's look at sound. I want to take them to where they know, because the brain says I cannot learn anything new unless I attach it to something old that I have mastered. Everybody, all your audience, understand music. They understand the impact of music. Music is a universal language, right? Now, what does music do to the body? It transforms the physical nature of the body if you listen to the right music. Is that true or false?
Yeah, like I
Is
get
that
what you
false,
mean.
or will you say
I get
that's true?
that.
Okay, okay, perfect.
Music
So
transforms,
now,
yeah.
so the intention of what the music is doing to the body is what we wanted to do with the sound. So we wanted to take sound frequency that does the exact thing music does to your body, and we transform that frequency, because that music that you're listening to is a unique frequency that transforms you to feel better or feel good about what you're experiencing. So now we take that music and we convert it into a wave where there's no sound, and now you are experiencing the same thing, but now it's on an unconscious level. See, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to develop people to be unconscious in that experience of transformation, not conscious of
But
it.
it looks like the Aura coil sells for like $11,000, and then the Chi coil I'd say is usually around a few hundred to a few thousand, depending on which kit you get. So, what is the reason that people wouldn't just turn on Spotify and listen to brown noise or something that resonates with
Or
them
turn on a motor.
to activate these parts of their brain for free? Or turn on a motor, yeah, or just sit
Yeah,
and
like sell it
meditate,
to us. Sell it
as
to
opposed to
us.
spending $10,000, which for
Okay,
a lot
okay.
of people, you know, like for me, for example, that's
We're
like
giving you a
3-4
chance.
months of my income. helps.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay. So, because you're very complex, you're a complex human being that have a different variety of situations happening to you on demand all the time. So, you might wake up in the morning, you're tired, right? What are you going to do for tiredness? Are you going to listen to a music in order to become excited and become more energetic?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, let's try. Let's try it. Okay, then let's say you wake up in the morning, you feel sickly. You feel you got. Let's say you got some bugs, right, in your body. Are you gonna listen to music and get the bug away to go away? Okay. Or let's say you wake up in the morning, you feel lack. You feel like I feel broke, busted, and disgusted today, right? Right. So are you gonna listen to music to feel the opposite? So what David has done is create a collective of frequency that is unique to develop the whole human construct in so many different aspects. So if you woke up in the morning and says, my business is not successful, I can go in there and I can find those frequency and I can run those frequency about my business and be able to achieve that level of success that I'm attaining. Unless I wake up in the morning, I feel like my chakras is not in the tune today. I can go in there and I can grab the chakra frequency and I can run those frequency, but I can do it unconsciously while I'm doing everything else. Does that make sense? So I am actually still living my life naturally while the frequency is supporting, guiding me into that. I can wake up in the morning and say, I'm stressed. Well, I can run the calm frequency. I can say I lack abundance. I can run the abundance frequency. Or I can say I want to become more aware. I want to become more expansive, right? In my knowing. I can now go and find those frequencies that's unique for my purpose. Now you have an on-demand support. That's what makes this unique. The rest of the other situation you suggested doesn't have an on-demand support. So I'll give you an example. When we talk about schools,
Music
kids have
does.
social emotional issues. Music does, but let's say in the classroom you can't play the music in the classroom. So what do you do about that?
Yeah, but are you a
You
teacher in
can't
the
play the classroom.
classroom? Is that what you're saying? Aren't you a
Yes, I'm an
teacher?
actual.
So
Yeah,
you can play music
yeah.
in the classroom, right? My friend is a
No, you
music
cannot.
teacher. They have
I know a music
PRS.
teacher, but not in a not in a reading classroom, not in a math classroom, not in a science classroom. You
So,
can't
like,
just have
okay,
on-demand support.
let's say like the difference it's made in your life out of 100.
hmm
What
Out of a
number would you
hundred,
give it?
I would say in the 90s, as
And do
far
you get
as
do you get
how
paid
it
by
is
David
transforming.
Wong?
No, I do not get paid by David. I'm actually in partnership with David so I can help transform education within the United States. That
So
is the whole
you want
purpose.
to
I want to come into the schools and bring
help
this
use the
frequency.
chi thing in schools?
Yeah, I want to help kids, not just in this country, other countries. So I'm giving an example of how I'm helping kids. So I come in the room, a lot of the kids I work with are a lot of time emotionally, socially, emotionally distorted. They're aggressive, they're angry and frustrated. So what I do is I actually have the aura coil in my classroom. So I run the calm frequency. The kids are more calm. Now I'm able to educate them, right? I'm able to empower them. So let's say the kids come in and says, no, my mom is going through this. We don't have this. We don't have this. Then I'll run the abundance frequency, right? So because I want them to resonate with that, and I want them to be able to go beyond and my environment and go out into the world and become an attractive magnet for those things that they're lacking. So I run those frequency in the classroom on demand, and I've actually seen results of kids. Those little kids, when I was telling you about the second graders, I ran the frequency in the background for calm and relaxation. And I got them from being able to sit still 5 seconds, 10 seconds to 45 minutes. How? Because I ran that and then I'm able to tap. I'm able to do those other things because now I've calmed that down. So we look at the frequency device as a support mechanism that is able to help move these kids. So kids with ADHD are calmer, right? Because ADHD is not a disease. ADHD is just your ability to react to people, places, and things. And so we want to see, are you able to react slowly? Or are you able to react faster? What do you want to do? So there's a need for both, right? If you're processing information, you want to react faster. If you're understanding something, you might want to react slower, listening and learning, right? So those things are necessary in order to transform. But guess what? The biggest issue in education is not on-demand support. If a kid is feeling sad, he or she does not have access to a counselor in real time. But guess what? We can create a playlist in the classroom that deals with anger and other types of distortion and run it to calm them down in the classroom and send that information to the cell, which transforms them.
That's lovely. I
Okay.
really love your intention that you want to help the emotional regulation of kids. And I feel like you have the right, like, it's obvious that you have had intense experiences in your life that have affected you. And you've also been like someone that has had like a rough life and wants to make the most of it and wants others that have had rough lives, like, a lot of us in our community, you know, aren't like beloved by everyone. We've got a lot of inadequacies. We've got a lot of like distortions, as you say, or like I'd like to define that as like negative beliefs thrust upon us based on a different society that's different to us. And like I'm glad that you have it. It just seems like a bit gemstony, you know. Like I feel like nervous systems do affect each other, and I feel like if you believe that that thing is helping you, and then it makes you feel calm, then the kids will naturally feel calmer in their nervous systems, because like through things like tone of voice and things like, you know, how you present them. Maybe you space your words a bit slower when you have the calm frequency on. There's these things that are normally imperceivable to us, but they do have an effect on our nervous system. We are always regulating each other's nervous system by the way we speak. So what's the difference between the cheat? Like I almost want to like grab you by the waist and be like, mate, you have some really great things that you're doing with kids. You're helping them learn focusing skills, which is so damn needed. When we have had traumatic lives, our attention jumps like a honeybee. You know, we don't have control over our thoughts because they just jump on whatever is stimulating to us. I love that you're saying that people are, you know, you should follow what resonates with you. You know, that's so important to us ADHDers. And I think that we are people who follow our nervous system to the T, and we do become more alive when we follow what resonates with us. You know, what makes us feel inside. Like you said that you have like a reaction inside your body when something has so much possibility. Me too, and I'm sure Addie would agree. And so like there's so much good of what you say, and I feel like you could do so good on your own if you forget this David Wong guy. Like, please,
No, no,
for the
no, no, no,
goodness
no.
of the planet,
No,
forget him.
So right. So here's the thing. Meeting David, it says you got to understand it's all about bridging, right? You have to understand where your gift and your talent limits you, right? So it's not about me versus David. It's about coming together in unity, right? I think you guys have ability, gifts, and talent that I would love to tap into and see how we can collectively make a difference in the world, because I think it's time out to stop reacting. One of the things I wanted to also share with you, there's a nature of reality that says the soul, the essence of that which you are, conceives your reality, right? The mind retrieves, the body perceives. Most of the things that you were stating is from the body perspective. That's a reactive process. The body's only reflecting.
No, it's not
the body
necessarily.
Really...
It's not reactive.
No.
Like, don't
the body,
confuse
the body,
it.
you
I'm
cannot
aware of the
change. You cannot bring
sensations.
change in the body.
Yes, you can.
No, you
Somatic
cannot bring change.
experiencing. You can
bring change from
scientifically
the intention.
proven. Here's my
No.
reality.
You bring...
Do you want to listen to my reality for 1 second? Like, you talk a lot, you got to let it be even, because you're selling something.
Okay, go ahead.
And there needs to be a balanced argument, okay?
Absolutely.
So, like, you say
Go
you
ahead.
can't change from within the body. That's incorrect. It's scientifically proven incorrect.
That's not what I said.
Somatically, okay,
That's not what I said.
So what did you say?
I said we cannot change from the reaction that's outside of us. We have to change.
So what I just wanted to define was you said that acting from the body is an emotionally reactive thing. Yes, normally, but there are practices like yoga and meditation and other things where you learn that when the body feels something, you choose a new reaction to it. And like typically, yes, in the body, you do automatically react to it, but the game is to observe it, and then we don't automatically react. So we can change from the body, and that is how we influence the subconscious. Or what do you think?
So I think, so when we do yoga and meditation, we're not reacting. Remember, the goal is not to react.
Yeah.
The goal is to internalize and then act. Right? And what I mean by internalize is that when you go inside and let's say you're meditating and you calm everything down, you get contrast and perspective. Right? When you zero yourself out, you get to see the contrast of the reality that you really want. So for when you let's say you're doing meditation for a specific purpose. I want to lose weight. And so I'm going to meditate on this idea, and I'm going to calm myself down, and I'm going to let go of all the negative thoughts that comes in. You come and you're disconnecting. So we want to disconnect from the reactive reality, right? And then we want to internalize. And then when we internalize, we're actually educating the selves. We're teaching the selves. We're teaching the aspect of us that's within us that this is what I want to align with, right? This is what feels natural for me. This is what I desire. And once you send that intention in, then transformation is pulled from the mind, and then you begin to see the new reality in front of you that you desire. You cannot change the reality out there. You have to change the reality inside of you. And that's what we want to focus on. Because everything else is reactive out there.
Yeah, don't be emotionally
So
reactive. I think
I agree
that's
with you.
good.
I think we're on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah. I like
Okay.
finding the
And
same
so
page. I think
with
it's
the
just a difference of
yeah,
semantics. Like sometimes you say words like multi-dimensional beings, and I just want to like be on the same level
yeah,
as you and be like, what is that? Like because our listeners won't understand. You know, you have a special relationship with these words
yeah.
like multi-dimensional beings. You know, you have multi-dimensional system, you have knowingness, you have these words that you use that you have your own definitions for, and I just want to like make sure that everyone's understanding how you see those words.
But remember at the beginning of this conversation, I said words are all subjective, right? And
Yeah, that's why
it's
I want to
not
know
the
yours.
word. Well,
Yeah, so it's
my
like words
words
are
are irrelevant.
subjective,
It's
but
my
then also
action.
people take different meaning from words,
Yeah, like they'll get the
and
default
it like
message.
you're
But
yeah.
that's a representation of themselves, and they still have to accept that as love. When someone comes and say, something, I don't believe in multidimensional understanding of reality. That's fine. They don't need to know that, right? What do you understand? Let's build from there. Do you understand interaction with other people? Do you see the complexity of other people? Do you see the complexity of your environment? Do you see the complexity of the planet? Do you see the complexity of the solar system? Now we begin to expand beyond you. Now you begin to understand, oh, there's something even more further out if I keep going beyond myself. And that's how you educate people to
I
self-empower.
like that.
So that way, when I say multidimensional, I can say that is a potentiality you may not be aware of right now, but it's okay. Just take the steps that's necessary for you to grow.
I like that. So
Yeah,
it's basically
that's
like
great. I
by
think
zooming
that
out.
is
Wait, let me say this.
yeah.
You're saying that by
Go,
zooming
Ben.
out, I know that we can typically operate our reality and our thoughts are programmed by words. You know, I think we all know that, and we each have an identity that's like influenced over time, and I believe that if we have a reality, if you will, where we are defined by our identity, then we are locked and unable to change a bit. But you're saying if you zoom out and see that everything is a system of systems, everything, like we are a small part of the beach. You know, we are a grain of sand on the
Hmm.
beach that is the solar system. That's what you're saying. And you're saying that you can expand because of that. Like, are you saying that by
Yes,
zooming out of just seeing it from your limited, unique solo perspective and seeing the system, the everything, that you can
hmm.
almost what then you can what and it helps
Okay.
you
So
gain a
what is
kind of better perspective.
okay? So what is amazing? Okay. Okay.
So yeah, it
So
sounds like
when you expand, I'm sorry, they
yeah.
would call them. And when you expand outside of you, right? You also understand the depth of what is inside of you. And because what is outside of you is also within you, as above, so below, as within, so is outward. So the goal is to first understand what you know and build on that, build on expanding beyond you. And then after that, we'll go within you and begin to see that everything that you think is beyond you exists within you because you are expressions of all that is. And that's how we educate. And that's why I want to educate. So when I use those algorithms, kids will begin to see the simplicity and they'll begin to see how the simplicity intertwine within complexity.
So it's like you're bridging the
And
gap
that's what we
between
want to do.
spirituality and ADHD. Like I know a lot of ADHDers are involved in the spiritual
Yes.
community, you
Yeah.
know, because we're looking for an
There you go.
answer. You're saying that you're kind of
Yeah.
trying to bridge the gap and be a communicator and to
Correct.
translate, because I think that there are a lot of
Yeah.
insights you can get through practices, through concentration practices, and I think that
Yes.
it does improve the agility of attention and how to place it. Like I've
Yeah.
experienced that in my own life, you know, like I've been
Correct.
practicing meditation like maybe 9 years now. So
Yeah.
I've witnessed that our attention can go from one of a honeybee that jumps onto like things that we are emotionally triggered by, and we can also change
Correct.
our reactive relationship with that, you know. And I understand that. I
Correct.
just feel like if you want to be a communicator of the spiritual and like the typical mindset of understanding, I think you need to find a different way to explain it, or a way that won't be so intense for people, and maybe use terms that they understand a bit more.
Guess what, Ben? You needed to hear it this way today. You know why? Because it's going to expand you. And that's the same
Like
for Addie.
that's a
Everything that
sweet thing
sometimes
to
feels
say.
uncomfortable,
And
it
I
will
hope that what
expand
I
you
said
because that,
expanded you. Like I'm on your team, man. I'm a good communicator and I want to help you be a better one.
And I want to partner with you guys. I really do. I want to partner with you guys, and let's do more collaboration. Let's do more engagement with one another because I have a lot to learn from you all. And I think we all have gifts and talents that are unique. And I think when we bring it together, we create the overall puzzle that is necessary to show the vision of our collective. So I'm all about bringing the collective together. So
I
this
think that's a great
co-creation
note
with
to
listen,
like send off our audience on,
yes,
is the idea of
please,
interconnecting with each other and learning from each other, and expanding your own awareness to include those around you. I love what you're
absolutely.
doing with education, Jossie. Not sold on the chi coil myself, and I think we can reach all these different levels of like understanding and through our own being. So glad that we could have had you on to talk about this and learn your experiences. Um, for our audience, thank you so much for listening. If you've got to this point, we love you so much for
Thank you.
sticking with us.
Okay.
You can like please rate, review on all the platforms so that more people can hear interesting and messages like this where we get curious about topics with our ADHD.